The hum of machinery echoed through the underground chamber, vibrating in the steel bones of the facility. Fluorescent lights flickered over rows of technicians, their faces pale and focused as they calibrated a weapon that should not exist. At the far end of the lab, Dr. Viktor Sokolov stood with his hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the sleek black warhead resting on its cradle. It was almost ready, the culmination of years of work, a device that could tilt the balance of power and bring nations to their knees. Somewhere above ground, satellites blinked awake, capturing ghostly heat signatures of the bunker. Within hours, men with guns would be moving to stop him. But for now, the world's future sat silent, waiting for a single command. The secure conference room sat 3 stories below ground, buried under reinforced concrete and layers of classified clearance. A single fluorescent strip buzzed above the long steel table where 4 operators waited in silence. Major Cole Mercer sat at the head, posture rigid, his face lined with years of missions the world would never hear about. Across from him, Reyes leaned back in his chair, boots on the table, calmly loading rounds into a magazine with the slow precision of a surgeon. Mara Quinn barely moved, her dark eyes locked on the screen at the far wall, fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup like a ritual. Dante Vega cracked his knuckles, restless, itching for something to break. The door hissed open, and a man in a tailored grey suit entered. Director Havel, NATO's shadow liaison. His face was sharp, his eyes sharper, the kind of man who lived in war rooms and measured casualties in statistics. "Gentlemen, Miss Quinn." He placed a file on the table, flipping it open to reveal a series of grainy surveillance photos. Convoys, bunkers, heat maps, and at the center of it all, Dr. Viktor Sokolov. "This is your target," Havel said. His tone was clinical, stripped of emotion. "Nuclear physicist. Once a ghost, now very real. He's finalizing work on a next-generation warhead, compact and portable, but powerful enough to alter the strategic balance of Europe. If his government rolls this weapon out, diplomacy is dead. They become untouchable." Mercer's jaw tightened. "Orders. Capture. Alive. His mind is the weapon, not the device. If he dies, his research dies with him, and we lose the chance to control it." Reyes snorted. "Control. Funny word for a bomb that can turn cities into craters." Havel ignored the remark. "You're not alone in the field. A rival Allied unit has been deployed with alternate instructions." Mara's eyes flicked up. "Alternate?" "They've been ordered to terminate Sokolov and destroy his work entirely." The room stilled. "Which unit?" Mercer asked. Havel's expression was a mask. "You'll know when you see them." "And you will see them." Dante slammed a fist lightly against the table. "So it's not just a hunt, it's a race." Havel closed the file, sliding it across to Mercer. "Insertion window is midnight, 48 hours from now. Halo jump, covert approach. This mission never happened. If you succeed, the world keeps turning. If you fail—" He let the silence finish the sentence. The door sealed shut behind him, leaving the team alone in the hum of the fluorescent light. Mercer looked at each of them in turn. "We move in 2 days. Rest, prep, and remember, this isn't just another mission. This is the one that decides if the world wakes up to a new nuclear power." Reyes tapped the last bullet into his magazine with a metallic click. No pressure then. The team sat in silence, the weight of the operation pressing down on them. Beyond the concrete walls, the world turned unaware of how close it was to the edge. And in the shadows of Europe, another team was already moving toward the same target. The roar of the C-130's engines filled the cavernous belly of the aircraft, vibrating through steel ribs and into the bones of the 4 operatives seated along the side benches. The red jump light cast them all in a bloody glow, their faces half hidden behind oxygen masks and the bulk of night gear strapped to their bodies. Cole Mercer checked his altimeter again, though he didn't need to. Old habits, old nerves. After all the years of covert drops into places that didn't exist, the seconds before the jump always felt the same. The moment the body remembered, it was about to do something insane. Reyes sat opposite him, dark eyes hidden behind goggles, fingers drumming idly against the butt of his suppressed rifle. He looked like he was about to step out for a casual stroll rather than freefall at 30,000 feet. Dante Vega leaned forward, knuckles white as he gripped the straps across his chest, muttering under his breath in Spanish, a prayer, a curse, or both. Mara Quinn was the stillest of them all, sitting upright, gloved hands folded on her lap, her mind already racing through contingency plans and maps. Only she seemed to keep in her head. The jumpmaster's voice cracked over the comms. 2 minutes, oxygen on. Masks clicked, the cabin filled with the hiss of compressed air. Mercer adjusted his own, his eyes scanning the team. 4 ghosts, dressed in matte black jumpsuits, burdened with rifles, knives, and explosives. This wasn't just insertion, it was erasure. In 2 minutes, they would vanish into the sky, into hostile airspace, and the world would never know they had been there at all. The rear ramp lowered with a hydraulic groan, and the roar of wind drowned out everything. The icy night rushed in, slapping their faces, whipping through gear straps. Far below, only darkness stretched out, broken by faint veins of light where villages clung to the edges of the mountains. Mercer stood, signaling to the others. One by one, they moved to the ramp, each waiting for the red light to turn green. The last seconds dragged long, then the light blinked. Green. Mercer leapt. The night swallowed him. His body hurtled into the black void, the roar of wind tearing at his limbs, his altimeter numbers spinning fast. He stabilized into freefall, arms out, chest down, his breath steady inside the mask. All around him, faint silhouettes of the others streaked through the sky like falling shadows. The earth below crept closer, its features emerging. The jagged white teeth of mountain ridges, the snake of a frozen river, the dense black smear of forest. 10,000 feet. Parachutes cracked open above them in staggered bursts, canopies blooming silently in the thin air. Mercer's chute yanked him upward hard enough to bruise, but then he was gliding, descending quietly through the night. His earpiece crackled as the others checked in, voices calm, clipped. They landed rough on a snow-dusted clearing. Vega hit too hard, rolling, cursing but alive. Mercer pulled free of his chute, already unslinging his suppressed rifle, scanning the tree line. Cold bit through their gear as they regrouped. No chatter, no wasted breath. Infiltration meant silence. The trek began. Hours through forest and ridge lines, boots crunching through frozen brush, the only sounds their breath and the creak of packs. The night was merciless, temperature dropping below freezing, the air sharp enough to cut lungs. Reyes took point, moving with uncanny silence, his sniper rifle slung, eyes sharp behind night vision optics. Mara checked her GPS, adjusting course. Their target was 30 kilometers east, a village near the Dniester River, rumored to be a staging ground for one of Sokolov's convoys. They moved like shadows, but the mountains carried whispers. Broken branches where no deer moved. A faint impression in the snow, boot prints partially covered by frost. Mercer knelt, brushing gloved fingers across the indentations. Broad military issue. Fresh, not theirs. His gut tightened. They weren't alone. They pressed forward cautiously, senses sharpened, the tension thick enough to choke. Hours later they crested a ridge, and below faint lights glowed in the valley. A farmhouse compound, its perimeter ringed with chain-link fencing and 2 watchtowers silhouetted against the stars. Through binoculars, Mercer studied the scene. Armed men patrolled the grounds, their weapons professional, not militia-grade. Trucks idled in the yard, diesel fumes mixing with the snow. But it wasn't the guards that made his stomach twist. It was the bodies, 3 men, stripped of gear, hanging from the fencing like warnings. Their faces were purpled with bruises, throats cut deep, tags ripped from their uniforms. Mercer didn't recognize the insignia, but the quality of their weapons told the story. Special forces, not locals. Mara's voice was barely above a whisper. Another team. Reyes adjusted his scope, lips curling in a humorless grin. Whoever they were, they didn't make it far. Mercer felt the weight of Director Havel's words from the briefing. Another covert unit. Rival orders. This was proof. But who killed these men? The guards or the rivals themselves in some twisted betrayal? The answer came in the faint hiss of encrypted radio chatter bleeding into their comms. Not their frequency. Someone close. Someone professional. Mercer raised a hand, signaling silence. They crouched in the snow, straining to listen. A clipped voice in a language none of them spoke carried over the channel. Another voice cut in, English this time, sharp and commanding, "Sweep the perimeter. Leave nothing." Reyes's eyes flicked to Mercer. "That's not the guards." Mercer's jaw locked. He felt it in his bones. Another team was here, alive, hunting, and they were moving fast. The farmhouse lights flickered, a door slamming open, and the guards barked orders. The compound was coming alive. Mercer pulled the team back, deeper into the tree line. The mission had only just begun, but already the shadows were crawling with enemies. 30 kilometers from Sokolov's trail, they weren't the only predators in the dark. The farmhouse loomed in the valley like a rotten tooth. Its walls weathered, roof sagging under frost, but Mercer knew better than to mistake it for anything simple. The compound was a staging ground, a temporary node in Sokolov's shadow network, and where networks converged, information flowed. If they wanted to find the physicist, they needed inside that house. The team crouched in the tree line, breath rising in silver plumes, watching through NVGs as guards made their rounds. 2 on the southern tower, 2 circling the trucks, 1 smoking near the front door. Inside, shadows moved past thin curtains, men with rifles slung, their laughter faint against the night. Mercer spoke low into the comm. "Reyes, you're high cover. South Ridge. Quinn, Vega, you're with me. Quiet entry, 2 minutes." Reyes nodded once, slinging his rifle and sliding back through the snow, a wraith disappearing into the dark. Minutes later, his voice crackled over the net. "Eyes on. Winds clean." Mercer signaled forward. They moved like smoke, slipping down the slope, using trees for cover, crunching snow buried under slow, deliberate steps. The compound fence loomed, its links rimed with ice. A section sagged where frost had eaten the steel. Mercer cut the wire with a muffled snip, easing it apart for Vega to slip through, then Mara, then himself. Inside the perimeter, the air tasted of diesel and cigarettes. A guard near the door flicked ash into the snow, his rifle dangling loose on the strap. Vega was on him before he knew death was coming, an arm locked around the throat, a blade punched up under the ribs, muffling his cry in a wet choke. They lowered him gently, blood steaming on the frost. "Clear," Vega whispered, wiping the knife on the corpse's jacket. They moved to the farmhouse wall. Mercer stacked them at the door, listening. Inside, boots shuffled across wood floors. 2 voices. He raised 3 fingers, counted down. On 0, he pushed through. The door swung and silence shattered. Mercer's suppressed pistol spat once, dropping the first man mid-step, a hole drilling through his skull. Mara pivoted left, firing twice, neat and surgical, and the second man slumped against the wall, smearing blood as he slid down. Vega kicked the door shut behind them. The farmhouse smelled of rot, cheap liquor, and gun oil. A radio crackled faintly on the table, men's voices barking in another language. Maps lay scattered, circled with ink, arrows pointing to transport routes. Mercer swept the room, heart pounding. Intel was here, somewhere. A door banged upstairs, heavy boots, shouts. They weren't alone. Reyes's voice hissed in Mercer's ear. 3 tangos moving from East Barracks toward you. I can drop 2 before they hit the wall. 3rd one's yours. Do it. 3 suppressed cracks split the night. Outside, 2 figures folded into the snow. The 3rd screamed and ran, weapon raised. Mercer leaned out the door, firing a controlled burst. The guard's chest blossomed red as he toppled face first into the drift. Silence returned, broken only by the rising panic inside the farmhouse. The stairwell thundered with footsteps. Vega braced at the bottom, shotgun drawn. The first man appeared. Black mask, military-grade kit, rifle raised, not local militia. This was someone else. The blast ripped through him at point blank, shredding flesh, painting the wall. His body slammed into the second man behind, staggering him. Mara stepped up, calm as ever, and shot him twice through the visor before he could raise his weapon. When the 3rd came, Mercer saw it in his gear. The patch ripped from his arm, the mismatched kit scavenged from NATO stockpiles, not farmers, not gangsters, special forces, rival unit. Contact confirmed, Mercer growled. We're not the only ones hunting. The man dove for cover, spraying bullets across the room. Wood splintered, glass shattered. Mercer returned fire, forcing him back into the stairwell. Vega advanced, roaring, another shotgun blast lighting the dark. Silence fell with the stink of cordite. Upstairs was clear when they breached. 2 more dead, 1 bleeding out, choking, trying to reach for a sidearm. Mara kicked it away and stood over him, pistol steady. He spat blood, words tumbling in a language Mercer didn't know, but the contempt was universal. She ended it with a single shot. They swept the rooms. A bedroom had been converted to an operations post. More maps, coordinates, supply lists. But the detail that froze Mercer's gut was a dossier laid open on the desk. Not Sokolov, not the weapon. A picture of their team, grainy but clear, their faces, their names. Vega muttered, "They were hunting us." Reyes crackled in. "Movement, north side." 4 more, closing fast. "You've got less than 2 minutes." Mercer stuffed the documents into his pack. "Extraction point Delta, move." They dropped back down the stairs as glass shattered from outside, bullets stitching through walls. Vega returned fire through the window, sending 1 man crumpling. Mara kicked the back door open, snow rushing in, and they bolted into the night, sprinting for the tree line as rounds hissed past. Reyes's sniper cracked from the ridge, 1, 2, 3 shots, each a clean kill, buying them seconds. But more shadows were pouring from the barracks now, muzzle flashes lighting the compound. They ran hard, snow exploding under boots, adrenaline burning the cold from their lungs. Behind them, the farmhouse burned with muzzle fire, shouts echoing, the rival unit in pursuit. By the time they hit the tree line, Mercer's chest was on fire, but he didn't stop. Not yet. Not until the black swallowed them whole. Snow fell heavier now, fat flakes drifting through the black pines, smothering sound, blurring shapes, making the forest a labyrinth of shifting shadows. Mercer pushed the team deeper into the woods, lungs raw, legs burning, heart hammering with every step. The farmhouse compound was a smear of gunfire behind them, still alive with shouts and muzzle flashes, but the chase hadn't ended with their escape. It had only begun. Reyes's voice cut through the comms, sharp and urgent. "Multiple signatures tailing you. 6, maybe 8. They're disciplined, spreading out, moving fast. That's not local militia. That's military-grade pursuit." Mercer didn't need to hear it to believe it. He could feel it in the trees, the way the night seemed to stalk them. This wasn't random. The rival team had locked onto their scent, and they wanted blood. "Distance," Mercer whispered, closing. "They're using night optics, moving like hunters." "Copy. Break contact." They veered left, cutting through thickets that clawed at their suits, stumbling across a frozen stream that cracked ominously under their boots. Mara kept her GPS cradled, guiding them east, but her face was pale under the goggles. "They're herding us," she muttered, "pushing us into a funnel." Vega growled, breath steaming, his shotgun clutched tight. "Let them try. I'll gut them when they show their faces." Mercer didn't reply. He knew better. This wasn't about brute force, it was about control, and their enemies had already laid the board. The first shot came out of the dark like thunder. Reyes's grunt followed, sharp and cut off. His voice broke over the net. "Sniper, high ridge, west flank." Static swallowed the rest. "Reyes," Mercer hissed. No answer. The team froze, pressing into trees as another round cracked, punching bark inches from Mara's head. Splinters sprayed her cheek, drawing a thin line of blood. She didn't flinch. "Counter-sniper," Mercer barked. "Vega, smoke." Vega yanked a canister from his belt, thumbed it, and hurled it across the stream. Smoke erupted, a grey bloom mixing with the snow, shrouding them. Under cover they moved, crouched low, sprinting tree to tree. Bullets hissed through the fog, wild but close. Whoever was on the trigger knew how to herd prey. They burst into a clearing, a mistake. Shadows flared on the opposite side, men rising from the snow, rifles barking in disciplined bursts. Muzzle flashes stuttered like lightning. The rival team was there, masks blank, weapons suppressed but deadly. Vega roared, shotgun booming, blasting one back into the drifts in a spray of red. Mara dropped to a knee, firing controlled pairs, her silencer coughing as a man's chest burst, folding him into the snow. Mercer swept left, laying down fire, covering their sprint across the open. But the rivals weren't panicked. They were coordinated, flanking hard. Two shadows broke right, trying to cut them off. Another circled back with a short-barreled rifle, closing fast. "Go!" Mercer barked, shoving Mara forward, into the trees. They dove back into cover, branches whipping their faces. Vega fired blind behind him, shells clattering, keeping heads down. Mercer lobbed a flashbang, the forest flaring white, the shockwave punching ears and rattling bones. Screams followed, not many, but enough. They ran, feet slipping on roots, lungs burning. Still the hunters followed. A voice echoed behind them, harsh and commanding in English. "Push them east, don't let them circle." Mara's eyes flicked to Mercer. "They know our vector." He snarled. "Then we change it." They cut north, uphill, snow dragging at their boots. Gunfire ripped after them, rounds smacking trunks, tearing bark into their faces. Vega stumbled, a round grazing his arm, blood splashing onto the white. He cursed, teeth bared, still moving, still carrying the shotgun like it was glued to his hands. At the ridgetop, they collapsed behind rocks, breathing hard. Mercer risked a glance over. Shapes moved below, dark, disciplined, spreading through the trees with the patience of wolves. Reyes's voice cracked faintly over comms, weak but alive. I'm good. Just winged. Pulled cover west. They're between us. I'll harass from behind." Mercer clenched his jaw. "Stay alive. Link when we break contact." No more time. The rival team was closing fast. Mercer signaled Vega and Mara. "On my mark, suppress and break north." They nodded, weapons ready. Mercer hurled a frag into the trees. The explosion split the night, fire and dirt erupting, men shouting in pain. Vega rose with a roar, shotgun blasting, each shot a hammer in the dark. Mara's pistol whispered death, every round a clean surgical strike. Mercer's rifle roared, cutting down two as they tried to regroup. The rivals staggered but didn't break. They pressed, relentless, shouting to each other, moving like a machine. "Move!" Mercer barked, and the team sprinted again, lungs searing, boots barely gripping the frozen ground. The forest became a blur of black and white, snow and shadow, bullets and breath. Behind them, the rival team gave chase, their pursuit echoing like death itself through the winter woods. The hunt wasn't over, it had only just begun. The city stank of diesel and old stone, narrow streets winding like veins through crumbling blocks of Soviet concrete. Snow turned to slush in the gutters, headlights smeared across wet pavement, and everywhere the air buzzed with the restless tension of a place that had seen too many boots and too many guns. Mercer's team moved through it like shadows, hoods up, weapons broken down and hidden under layers of civilian coats. Their contact was supposed to meet them at a safe house above a shuttered bakery on the east side. A NATO asset embedded in the region, codename Gavel, with intel on Sokolov's convoy movements. Director Havel's voice had been clear. Trust him, he's reliable. But after the ambush in the woods, Mercer trusted no one. They climbed the creaking stairwell to the third floor, boots leaving muddy water on warped wood. Vega's arm was bandaged from the graze, but his eyes were bright, restless, itching for payback. Mara's face was unreadable, the faint cut on her cheek the only sign of the near-death brush with the sniper's bullet. Reyes had rejoined them the night before, limping but alive, his usual smirk dulled but not gone. Mercer knocked twice, paused, then once. The door opened to reveal a thin man in wire-rimmed glasses, his face grey, hair combed flat, the look of an accountant more than a spy. Gavel. He ushered them in quickly, locking the door behind. Inside smelled of cigarettes and damp plaster. Maps spread across the table, a half-empty bottle of vodka sweating beside them. Gavel lit a cigarette with shaky hands, motioning them closer. "You don't have long," he said in accented English. "Sokolov is on the move. He leaves the capital tomorrow, south route, under military escort. You intercept him there, you stop him. If not, he disappears." Mercer studied the maps, convoy routes, checkpoints, safe zones. It all lined up, almost too neatly. His instincts itched. "Why are you giving this to us?" Gavel exhaled smoke, eyes darting. "Because no one else will." And because if Sokolov finishes his work, we all burn. Mara leaned forward, voice low. Then why do you look like a man about to puke? Gavel's lips twitched, a flicker of nerves. He didn't answer. Instead, he pushed a folder toward Mercer, inside photos. Sokolov boarding a convoy truck, military escorts bristling with hardware. Satellite timestamps less than 12 hours old. It was good intel. Too good. Reyes leaned in close to Mercer, whispering under his breath. This smells wrong. Cleanest op picture I've ever seen. Like bait. Before Mercer could answer, glass shattered. The room exploded in gunfire. Bullets tore through the walls, shredding plaster, spraying splinters. Gavel screamed, his cigarette flipping across the maps as rounds stitched the table. Vega tackled him to the floor, returning fire through the window with his pistol, glass exploding outward. Mara dropped flat, firing controlled bursts through the doorway, cutting down two masked figures as they surged up the stairwell. Reyes cursed, dragging Mercer behind cover. We're burned. Rival team, Mercer's gut clenched. The maps, the photos, the perfect intel. Gavel sold us out. The man on the floor sobbed, blood pooling from his gut where a stray round had punched through him. I didn't, he wheezed, but Vega's cold eyes silenced him. He pressed the barrel of his pistol against Gavel's head. He doesn't walk out. Mercer had no time to argue. Another grenade clattered into the room. Mara kicked the table over, flipping it just as the blast ripped through, fire and dust choking the air. Back exit, Mercer barked. They hauled through the kitchen, boots slamming across tile slick with spilled vodka. Burst through the rear door into a narrow alley. More shadows poured in from the street. Black gear, NVGs glowing faint green, rifles raised. The rival unit, professional, fast, ruthless. Gunfire erupted in the alley, muzzle flashes strobing the night. Reyes dropped two with surgical headshots, moving backward, reloading without breaking stride. Mara's pistol snapped, each round finding a chest, a throat. Vega roared, shotgun blasting, one man folding backwards against the wall, blood spraying in an arc. But the rivals pressed harder, disciplined, communicating in sharp bursts. One vaulted a fence, cutting them off. Another slid from a rooftop, firing down. The alley turned into a kill box. Mercer lobbed a smoke grenade, thick white fog boiling up. He grabbed Mara's arm, yanking her toward a side passage. Reyes and Vega followed, covering their retreat. Bullets hissed through the smoke, blind but close, ricochets sparking off brick. They broke into the street, headlights flaring as a truck barreled toward them. Reyes dropped to a knee, fired 3 rounds through the windshield. The driver slumped, the vehicle swerving, smashing into a lamppost in a screech of metal. The crash bought them seconds, only seconds. They sprinted into the maze of streets, weaving through crowds startled awake by gunfire. Dogs barked, windows lit, sirens wailed in the distance. The city was alive now, the chase spilling into its veins. Mercer's comm hissed with a voice, cold, calm, mocking. You can't win this, Mercer. Walk away, and maybe your people get to live. It was the rival commander. Mercer spat into the mic as they ducked into a side alley. If you wanted mercy, you came to the wrong war. Gunfire answered him. The pursuit thundered on, closer with every heartbeat. And somewhere behind them, the maps of Sokolov's convoy burned in a pool of vodka and blood. Dawn broke grey over the valley, the sky a bruise of low clouds and weak light bleeding across the ridges. The road cut through the mountains like a scar, narrow, twisting, hemmed in by cliffs on one side and forest on the other. Mercer's team lay in the frost above the bend, rifles trained, breath fogging in the cold. Below, the rumble of engines grew, diesel snarling against the rock. The convoy was coming, 3 trucks, armored, flanked by 2 military transports bristling with mounted guns. Soldiers rode on the flatbeds, rifles ready, their eyes scanning the tree line. In the center vehicle, under tarp and steel, was the prize. Dr. Viktor Sokolov, the man who could tilt the balance of power with the turn of a wrench. Reyes whispered into the comm. Got overwatch on the ridge, 8 tangos. They'll see us the second we fire. Mara's voice was cold. Then make sure they're the first to die. Mercer raised a hand. The team readied charges buried under snow, rigged to the culvert beneath the road. It wouldn't destroy the convoy, but it would stop it, trap it. That was all they needed. Engines roared closer, tires crunched over ice. The lead truck hit the bend. Mercer clenched the detonator. The world split with fire and thunder as the culvert blew, earth and snow erupting, the road collapsing under the first vehicle. Metal screamed as it jackknifed, flipping onto its side, blocking the path. Soldiers spilled, dazed, shouting. The convoy ground to a halt. "Go!" Mercer barked. Reyes's rifle cracked, headshots snapping men from the ridge one by one. Mara and Vega opened fire from the tree line, silenced rounds punching through helmets and chests. Mercer's own rifle bucked in his hands, cutting soldiers down as chaos tore through the column. But before the dust settled, the rival team struck. Figures burst from the far tree line, black gear, disciplined formation, rifles spitting fire. They cut down the convoy guards without hesitation, but their barrels swung toward Mercer's team just as fast. It wasn't about helping. It was about claiming the target. Bullets hissed past Mercer's ear, smashing bark into his face. He rolled behind cover, firing back, taking one rival operator in the throat. Vega roared from his flank, shotgun blasting, tearing a man clean off his feet. Mara stayed low, cold and precise, putting 2 rounds into a rival's chest as he tried to flank. Reyes's voice snapped over the comm. "Sniper, East Ridge, moving on me, shit!" His rifle barked twice, silence following. Seconds later he muttered, breathless, "Target down," still alive. The convoy erupted in total war. Soldiers, mercenaries, rival operators, all tangled in the kill zone. Gunfire cracked like lightning, grenades boomed, smoke and dust rolled across the road. Sokolov's transport sat pinned, armored doors shut, engine growling. Inside, the physicist was trapped in the storm. Mercer's mind raced. Kill everyone, grab the prize, simple on paper, death in reality. "Cover me," he snarled. He bolted down the slope, sliding on ice, rounds snapping at his heels. A rival operator appeared from the smoke, mask blank, rifle raised. Mercer hit him full force, knife flashing, blade punching under the vest, twisting deep. The man jerked, shuddered, collapsed into the slush. Mercer sprinted for the center truck. A rival operator reached it first, yanking at the armored door, shouting into the vehicle. Mercer raised his rifle and fired, rounds punching through the man's back, slamming him against the steel. Blood smeared down the door. Mercer slammed his fist against it. "Sokolov, NATO command. We're extracting you." Inside, movement. A pale face behind armored glass, eyes wide, terrified. "Sokolov." But before the door opened, another shadow lunged from the smoke. The rival commander. Taller, broader, face hidden under a black balaclava, rifle raised like an executioner's blade. His voice boomed over the gunfire, familiar from the comms. "You're out of time, Mercer." They fired at the same instant. Mercer's round caught the man's shoulder, spinning him. The commander's shot tore past Mercer's ribs, burning hot, ripping cloth and skin. Pain flared white, but Mercer stayed on his feet. He dove for cover as Vega thundered in, blasting his shotgun, forcing the commander back. Mara joined, pistol barking, keeping him pinned. The rival team rallied, pressing hard, smoke and bullets swallowing everything. For every soldier that fell, another rival operator seemed to take his place. The road was a slaughterhouse, blood steaming in the snow, screams echoing off the cliffs. Reyes's voice cut sharp over comms. "We're losing this fight." "Call it, Cole." But Mercer's eyes were locked on the armored door, on Sokolov, still trapped, still within reach. He gritted his teeth, blood soaking his side, and growled into the mic. "We don't leave without him." He sprinted into the firestorm. The battlefield was smoke and fire, the stench of cordite thick in every breath. The convoy burned in jagged pieces, metal shrieking under flame, and the screams of dying men echoed down the valley. Mercer's side throbbed where the rival commander's bullet had grazed him, hot blood soaking into his shirt, but pain was for later. Now was only survival. Reyes's rifle cracked from the ridge, suppressing fire raining down. Mara moved like a shadow at ground level, her pistol snapping 2 rounds into a rival operator's visor, sending him tumbling into the dirt. Vega's shotgun roared, clearing space with brutal force, each shot a thunderclap in the chaos. Mercer reached the armored truck and pounded the side again. "Sokolov, open the door, now!" Inside, the physicist's pale face hovered, frozen with fear, then the hiss of hydraulics. The door inched open, heavy and reluctant. Movement at Mercer's flank, too fast. The rival commander surged from the smoke, shoulder bleeding but eyes burning with ruthless intent. He swung his rifle like a blade. Mercer ducked, the barrel clipping his temple, stars exploding across his vision. The commander slammed him against the steel of the truck, forearm crushing his throat. "You don't get to win this time," the man snarled through his mask, voice gravel. Mercer's vision darkened. He clawed at the man's grip, dragging a knife from his vest, slashing upward. The blade caught flesh, carving across the commander's forearm. The man roared, grip breaking, blood spraying. Mercer drove his knee into the commander's gut, shoved off the truck, and leveled his rifle. He fired 3 shots center mass. The rounds hammered the man back, armor cracking under the force, but he didn't fall. He staggered, fury blazing through the pain, and vanished into the smoke before Mercer could finish him. "Contact on your 6, Reyes shouted over comms. Mercer dragged Sokolov from the truck. The scientist stumbled, shaking, muttering in Russian. His glasses hung cracked on his nose, his hands trembling. "Move!" Mercer snapped, dragging him into cover as Mara and Vega carved open a path through the rival team. The valley was collapsing into hellfire, rival operators pressing hard, NATO's Black Ops team bleeding but refusing to break. A grenade landed near. Vega saw it first. "Down!" He dove, hurling it back, the blast shredding 2 rivals before it could reach them. His chest heaved, smoke blackening his gear, but he grinned through the soot. "Still got it." "Keep moving," Mercer barked. They sprinted toward the extraction point, a ridge at the far end of the valley, marked by smoke. Above, the distant thump of rotor blades cut through the chaos. The evac bird was inbound. Bullets shredded snow at their heels. Reyes' voice over comms was a harsh snarl. "They're flanking hard. I can't hold them much longer." "Fall back," Mercer shouted. "Now!" Reyes abandoned his sniper perch, sliding down the rocks, covering fire blasting as he regrouped. Rounds pinged off stone, dirt leaping around him, but he made it, slamming into the tree line just as Mara laid down suppressive bursts to clear his path. The rival team surged again. Dozens. Professional, relentless, fighting with the same purpose, seize Sokolov or leave no one alive. And behind them, unseen in the smoke, Mercer felt the commander moving, waiting, hunting. They broke into a sprint, dragging Sokolov, who gasped for air, nearly collapsing from exhaustion. The helicopter was closer now, the downdraft beginning to churn snow into a storm. Then the rival commander struck. He burst from the smoke like a phantom, rifle gone, combat knife gleaming. He slammed into Mercer, the 2 of them tumbling into the snow, rolling in blood and ice. The commander's knife flashed, carving for Mercer's throat. Mercer caught the wrist, muscles straining, veins bulging as the blade inched closer. "You're too slow now, old man," the commander hissed, voice raw. Mercer snarled through clenched teeth, twisting, head-butting the mask, cracking plastic. The commander reeled but didn't break. He jammed his knee into Mercer's ribs, forcing the air out, the knife grazing skin. Vega's roar cut through the chaos. He fired once, the shotgun blast catching the commander across the shoulder. Flesh and armor tore, the man spinning, staggering, but somehow still standing. Mara yanked Mercer up, blood streaking his face. "Move, Cole." "We don't have time." The commander tried to rise, knife still in hand, fury radiating like heat. Reyes fired from the ridge, 2 clean shots, rounds punching through the man's chest. This time he fell. Hard. Mercer stared down at him, chest heaving, the knife lying useless in the snow, but the man's eyes burned even as they dimmed, a promise carved into the silence. "This isn't over." Reyes shouted, birds touching down. 30 seconds. They dragged Sokolov up the ridge as the helicopter dropped into the clearing, side doors open, machine gun blazing suppressive fire into the tree line. Rival operators fell back, regrouping, unwilling to throw more lives into the grinder. The team hauled themselves into the bird, Sokolov shoved between them, trembling, clutching his chest like it would keep him anchored to the world. Vega covered the rear, blasting one last rival soldier off the ridge before diving in. The door slammed shut, the helicopter lifting into the pale grey sky. Below, the battlefield burned, bodies littered across ice and smoke. The rival commander's form lay crumpled in the snow, unmoving. But Mercer couldn't shake the gnawing certainty in his gut. Men like that didn't die easy. Sokolov's voice trembled, English broken and thin. You don't understand. They won't stop. None of them. The weapon, it's not finished. You're already too late. The team exchanged grim looks as the valley vanished beneath them. The mission wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The safe house was buried in the Carpathians, a derelict hunting lodge reinforced with steel shutters and a satellite uplink that hummed like a nervous heartbeat. Snow pressed against the windows, muffling the outside world, while inside the air was heavy with gun oil, sweat, and the faint antiseptic tang of field dressings. Sokolov sat shackled at the table, wrists raw from the steel cuffs, his glasses cracked, one lens held together by tape Vega had slapped on without care. He shivered, though the room was warm, his eyes darting like a hunted animal's. Across from him sat Mercer, ribs bound tight, face a roadmap of bruises. Mara stood at the wall, silent, arms folded, eyes drilling into the physicist with predatory focus. Reyes cleaned his rifle in the corner, each metallic click a reminder of what happened when patience ran thin. Vega leaned against the doorframe, shotgun resting on his shoulder, daring anyone inside or out to test him. Mercer's voice was low, controlled, carrying the weight of command and pain alike. "Doctor, you know why you're here. Start talking." Sokolov licked his lips, eyes flicking from Mercer to Mara, then back. His voice was hoarse. "You think you've won. But you are already too late. The weapon, my weapon, is not bound to me anymore. Others know. Others build." Mara's voice cut, sharp as glass. "Where?" Sokolov hesitated, fingers twitching against the cuffs. "An underground complex, far east. They move it constantly. You think it is a warhead. A bomb." He shook his head, a broken laugh escaping his throat. "It is more than that." Reyes set down his rifle, leaning forward, dark eyes narrowing. "What the hell does that mean? Speak plainly before I pull the plain truth out of you." Sokolov's gaze settled on Mercer, trembling. "Do you know what it means to end war forever? To make armies useless, fleets meaningless, nations bend without firing a shot?" Mercer's jaw tightened. "Get to the point." The physicist leaned forward, his voice lowering, fevered. "It is a compact reactor, self-sustaining, portable. Not just a weapon to destroy, but a tool to dominate. Place it in a city, and it powers everything for decades. Or detonate it, and it vaporizes a million souls in silence. No fallout, no mess, perfect destruction, perfect control. A god in a suitcase." The room went still. Even Vega shifted uncomfortably, his grin fading. Mara broke the silence. "That's impossible." Sokolov's cracked lips curled into a humorless smile. "Impossible yesterday, not today." Mercer studied him, eyes hard, calculating. He'd seen every kind of liar, fanatic, desperate man clinging to relevance. But Sokolov's terror was real, the kind that couldn't be faked. "Where's the prototype?" Mercer asked. Sokolov's face drained. "In transit. Already moving west, protected by forces you cannot match. The rival team you fought? They were only a distraction. You bleed each other while the weapon moves. By the time you catch up, it may already sit under your capital, humming quietly, waiting for one command." Reyes muttered a curse under his breath. "Christ, he's saying the whole valley was just a decoy." Mara's jaw flexed. "They let us take him." The realization crawled over the team like frost. Vega spat on the floor, fury twisting his face. "So what? We just dragged this bastard out of hellfire so his buddies could march a nuke right into the heart of Europe." Sokolov flinched at the word nuke. Not a nuke, a choice, the power to enslave or annihilate, and men far worse than me now carry it. Mercer slammed a fist onto the table, rattling the shackles, making Sokolov jump. "Then you're going to help us stop it." Locations, contacts, transit routes, everything. Sokolov's eyes brimmed with despair. You don't understand. I gave them everything because I thought it would end war. But men twist creation into ruin. You cannot stop it. It has already slipped into the bloodstream of nations. There will be more, many more. Mara pushed off the wall, stepping closer, her voice venom. Then pray you're wrong, Doctor. Because if you're not, you won't live to see it. The room's silence turned heavy, broken only by the distant hum of the uplink. Reyes lit a cigarette, exhaling slow. So what now, Cole? If he's telling the truth, we're chasing ghosts. And ghosts carrying the end of the world. Mercer's eyes never left Sokolov. He could see the cracks, the terror, the weight of knowledge poisoning the man. There was no bluff here. The world wasn't just on the brink, it was already tilting. He stood, his shadow falling across the trembling physicist. Now we hunt, Mercer said, voice gravel. We don't stop. Not until we've found that weapon. Not until we've put a bullet in the skull of every man carrying it. Sokolov's breath shuddered. You will fail. Mercer leaned down, his voice barely above a whisper. Not today. The door creaked as Vega pulled it open, snow blowing in, cold slicing across the room. Outside, the storm thickened, white swallowing black trees and mountains alike. The team moved one by one, gathering weapons, tightening straps, loading mags. The hunt had shifted. But in Mercer's gut, the weight of Sokolov's words gnawed deep. They weren't chasing a single man anymore. They were chasing the future itself, one that could kill the world without warning. And they were already behind. The world outside the safe house blurred into white as the storm thickened, but the team didn't stop. Every lead Sokolov gave them was carved into maps and screens, triangulated into one chilling truth. The prototype was already on the move, hidden inside a convoy of civilian trucks, rolling west toward the border. If it crossed, it would vanish into the arteries of Europe. After that, no one would find it until it was too late. Mercer's team hit the road before dawn, their black SUV hammering through the snow-slicked mountain passes. Vega drove like a demon, tires skidding around icy bends, engine roaring. Reyes rode shotgun, scanning the road ahead with binoculars, cigarette burning low in his lips. Mara sat in the back, eyes locked on the GPS screen, rifle cradled in her lap. Mercer checked his mags for the 5th time, his ribs aching with every breath, but his eyes sharp, locked on the mission. The radio crackled with static, then a clipped voice, calm, cold, unmistakable, the rival commander. You should have stayed dead, Mercer. The team froze. Vega swore under his breath. Mercer leaned forward, pressing the comms. I put 3 rounds in your chest. You should have stayed down. A dry chuckle slithered through the static. Armor buys time, time enough to finish what you failed to stop. The line cut. Reyes spat out his cigarette. Son of a bitch is riding shotgun on that convoy. Mara's jaw clenched. Then this ends tonight. They caught the convoy at dusk, headlights cutting through the snow as they barreled down the valley road. A line of trucks disguised as humanitarian aid, white paint, Red Cross logos. But the escort told the truth. Armored SUVs, heavy gunners mounted, disciplined soldiers fanned out on the flanks. Mercer's voice was low but firm. We hit them hard. Cut the escort's box in the center truck, prototypes in there. Vega grinned, teeth flashing in the dark. Time to break some glass. The SUV roared forward, smashing into the rear vehicle, metal shrieking, sparks flying. Reyes leaned out the window, rifle barking, dropping the gunner on the first truck. Mara fired through the windshield, glass shattering as her rounds punched into the driver of a second escort. The convoy split into chaos, trucks swerving, brakes screaming. Gunfire erupted, tracers lit the snowstorm in streaks of red and orange. Vega slammed their SUV into another escort, sending it spinning into a ditch. He laughed through the chaos, but his grin died when bullets punched through the windshield, grazing his arm. Blood sprayed, but he kept driving, eyes wild. Still good, he roared. The rival commander appeared like a shadow, leaning out the lead truck, rifle spitting fire with surgical precision. One round punched into Mercer's shoulder, another tore past Mara's cheek. He ducked back, pain burning, but his grip never faltered. Focus fire on the center truck, Mercer barked. Reyes launched a grenade, the blast flipping an escort into the air, metal tumbling end over end. Soldiers scattered, some screaming, others still firing through the smoke. Mara's rounds cut them down, sharp and efficient, her eyes hard as stone. The center truck swerved, engine howling. The rival commander climbed onto its roof, rifle slung, a combat knife in his fist, eyes locked on Mercer's SUV. "Get me closer," Mercer shouted. Vega slammed the accelerator, ramming their SUV against the side of the truck. Sparks flew, metal groaned, tires screamed. Mercer hauled himself out the window, pain lancing through his side, and leapt. His body slammed onto the truck's roof beside the commander. The two men clashed in the storm, knives flashed, steel ringing as they carved at each other, boots slipping on snow-slicked metal. Mercer's knife slashed across the commander's mask, tearing it away, revealing a scarred face, jaw clenched in grim fury. "You're too late," the commander snarled, blade cutting a deep line across Mercer's arm. "The world belongs to those strong enough to shape it." Mercer roared, slamming his forehead into the man's nose, blood spraying. The commander staggered but didn't fall. His knife arced high, plunging down, aiming for Mercer's throat. Mercer caught his wrist, muscles screaming, pushing back with every ounce of strength left. His other hand drove his knife forward, punching through ribs, twisting deep. The commander gasped, blood bubbling on his lips, eyes burning with rage even as they dimmed. "You still lose." Mercer ripped the blade free and kicked him. The commander tumbled from the roof, vanishing under the wheels of an escort truck with a sickening crunch. Mercer collapsed to his knees, breath ragged, blood soaking his gear. Below, Vega and Reyes boxed the center truck off the road, forcing it into a snowbank. Mara was already there, dragging open the back doors, rifle raised. Inside, a steel case the size of a coffin hummed with a faint glow. Cold, precise, and terrifying. The prototype. Sokolov's words rang in Mercer's head. A god in a suitcase. Mara's voice was flat, almost reverent. "We've got it." But then Reyes shouted, "Mercer!" Timer. A digital display blinked red on the case. 15 minutes. Sokolov hadn't lied about its power, and he hadn't told them everything. Mercer dropped into the truck, studying the device, his hands trembling. "Reyes, can you disarm it?" Reyes shook his head, eyes wide. "Not this. It's beyond me. Hell, it's beyond everyone." The team stared at the humming case, the countdown eating seconds like a predator. Mara's voice was low. "What do we do?" Mercer looked out at the storm, the wreckage, the bodies burning in the snow. His ribs ached, his blood ran hot, and the weight of the world pressed on his shoulders. "We take it to the chopper," he said finally. "Get it high, get it away from people. If it blows in the sky." Vega laughed bitterly. "So we gamble the world on altitude." "Love it." No one argued. They hauled the case out, muscles straining, snow crunching under their boots as the rotor thunder grew above. The extraction bird dipped low, door open, light spilling like salvation. Together they dragged the prototype aboard, strapping it down, the timer glowing in the dark. 10 minutes. The helicopter lifted into the storm, vanishing into the night, carrying death and salvation in the same steel box. Mercer slumped into his seat, bloodied, broken, his team battered and silent around him. He stared at the timer, every blink a hammer against his skull. 9 minutes, 8. The world held its breath. The helicopter clawed through the storm, rotors slicing the snow, carrying the Black Ops team and the humming steel coffin that could have ended millions of lives. Inside, the cabin smelled of smoke, blood, and adrenaline. The team exhausted beyond reason, but alive. Mercer sat closest to the case, ribs aching, vision blurred from blood and fatigue. He traced a finger along the cold metal, the faint hum vibrating through his palm. Reyes and Mara worked together, tools laid out with trembling hands, sweat freezing on their brows. Vega stood over them, shotgun resting across his lap, eyes scanning the grey void outside. No one spoke, each aware that a single mistake could be the end of everything. "Timer?" Mercer asked, voice rough. Reyes's hands flew over the digital interface. "Less than 5 minutes, and it's intricate, beyond anything I've ever seen." Mara's voice was steady, almost eerily calm. You've done this before, Reyes. Focus. Minutes stretched. 1 tick, 2 ticks, the countdown relentless. Outside, wind clawed at the fuselage, snow biting through gaps in the hull. Then a faint click, a hiss. The timer froze at 0:37. Reyes exhaled, hands shaking. Disarmed. It's done. Mercer sagged back, heart hammering, blood still warm on his side. He looked around at his team, haggard, broken, but alive. "We did it," he said softly. "We actually did it." Vega grinned, a rare sight, shotgun resting on his lap. And no one blew up. Today's a miracle. Mara allowed herself a small smile. Not just today. We stopped it from ever reaching the world. Sokolov, shackled in the corner, shook, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and shame. You don't understand," he whispered. "They will come for it." Others. There are always others. Mercer didn't answer. He didn't need to. They had won this fight. The war for the weapons control might continue, but at least today, humanity had been spared. The helicopter banked east, snow falling like ashes over the wrecked convoy below. Mercer's team sat in silence, letting the adrenaline fade into exhaustion. Pain throbbed, minds raced, but the relief was tangible, heavy as steel. Mercer's gaze fell on the horizon, grey clouds parting slightly, a pale sun cutting through. One day, maybe, they would get to live a normal life. But the world they returned to would never be the same, and neither would they. He leaned back, letting the hum of the rotor lull him, letting himself believe for a moment that the nightmare was over. Somewhere deep inside, he knew the shadows would always call, but for now the darkness had been held at bay. And for the first time in a long time, Mercer allowed himself to breathe. Outside, the storm still raged. Inside, the team survived. The prototype was secured. The world, fragile and battered, had been spared for now.